I got that answer. It was 128 megabytes of RAM. So there's the answer to your technical question. My next guest is Gary Fong. Gary's I know you're probably getting tired of hearing this, but incredible photographer once again. One of the things I particularly like about Gary is the way that he has blended his photojournalism with his portrait photography. He's one of the few photographers that I know, really, that has done such a wonderful job of blending these two. Another thing that I'll tell you about Gary, he's probably got the slickest sales setup of anyone I know. He gets an incredible average, and we're going to see how he does that. Why don't we roll the tape?
Been in this location 7 years. Been in business about 14 years in total.
So you had a studio before this one?
I had one studio before this, and before that, I was in my parents' apartment.
All right, it's beautiful. I mean, the design you've done is incredible. Did you hire someone to do that?
No, actually, I did it on my Macintosh.
Is that right?
Yeah, I drew out the furniture and where I would put it, and then built. It was all raw space, and then I built the walls all around the furniture. So
I noticed the lighting here seems to be really. I mean, it really has punch.
Yes, yes.
What's your light?
They're halogens. They're 5-degree spots, and they're like $5 each. But what we found is when we put one bulb in, it literally made a picture look like a Duratrans. It seems to illuminate it as if from behind.
You know what I'd like to do? I'd like to kind of talk through the process of how your clients call you on the phone. Where do they come from? So I guess that's the first question.
Sure.
Where do your clients come from? What type of marketing do you do, or where do they come from?
Well, first of all, we don't do any marketing at all.
Really?
Yeah. It's 100% word of mouth. In fact, for about 4 years, we had an unlisted phone number, which is very, very funny.
So it's all word of mouth.
It's all word of mouth.
Do you do anything special in terms of to get your clients to refer you like that?
Well, one of the things we've always believed in was the after sale, and a lot of the times I think the clients are a lot more receptive when they don't expect something.
Yeah.
So we're very good working with that. Like, for example, when we deliver an album to the couple, they get the album and they don't know this is coming because upon completion of the album, we photograph it.
Mm-hmm.
And then a couple weeks later, we give them a little present.
Can I say?
Yeah.
So you take your finished album, photograph it on 35 millimeter. Who produces these old books for you?
Well, actually, what happens is we take it down to like the nearest 1 hour photo lab, 2 for 1 day.
Right.
And then we just send it to them, and then they give us one copy, and we keep it in our library. So when a referral comes in and says, "Oh, you did my sister's wedding or whatever," we can say, "Oh, well, let's go grab their book." It's wonderful for us.
What a great idea. And not only is it a great gift, but they carry this around and show it to everyone.
Right. Because what we typically do when we sell our albums, it's 2 volumes. I mean, it literally would be 50 pounds worth of books.
Right.
It'll get very little exposure, but she can put that in her purse and take it to work.
I saw this big can over here. Is that?
Yes.
What is that thing?
Right. Well, that's another thing about when you were saying cultivating a referral relationship.
Right.
To us, it is a relationship, and I found these are wonderful. But one of the happiest times for the couple is when they're opening the presents from all of the gifts.
Right.
All of the gifts. And so we as wedding photographers, of course, it's not expected that we would give them a present. We wrap this up, and the photographer who shoots the wedding signs the card, and they get it. Now, this is a time capsule, and it's included with like a whole bunch of different ideas for like, this year.
Right.
Tape the daily news that evening, things like that. And it has a seal. And it says, do not open until the year, whatever, 25 years from now. But as a wedding photographer, we sell the special.
Right. And it actually makes such a great tie to
Exactly.
keeping your memories.
Exactly.
Now, okay, so your client base is primarily referral.
Yes.
Now, when they come into the studio, what's that experience like? What happens when they come here?
Well, basically, when they come in, usually they just want to chat.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll come down here and we'll just talk about things. Usually, it's the people that referred us because we know them. Did they have kids yet, or things like that. We'll just chat for a little while.
Is this a space where you?
This is where we would sit, and we'll just sit here and talk. And then from that point on, a lot of the people who come here haven't seen another photographer. Right. And it's like as soon as they know they're going to get married, they call us. Right. But some people don't. And what we do is we talk to them and find out what the wedding's going to be like. But mostly, we want to know if they've been to other wedding photographers. Mm-hmm. Now, that's basically our opening point into showing how different we are. I've always felt that the transaction should be an experience. Mm-hmm. And we wanted to take it not from your regular wedding photography studio where you have a book, you sit down, you flip through it, and you go through prices. Right. We wanted to change it from the very bottom up and make the entire time that they spend with us a total experience.
So what kinds of things do you do that might be different than what a typical photographer would do, just showing out?
Right. Well, what happens is from this point, after I ask them if they've been to other wedding photographers, I'll say, well, how did you feel about what you've seen? And they'll usually say, it's also typically the same. Wow. It's all posed photographs. We hate post. Universally, they will say we hate post photographs, and they always say that. And then for me, basically, it's difficult for me to then just say, well, I don't do that. And so I say that I have a videotape presentation I'd like to show you in our theater. And we actually built a theater here for our clients to come in and sit down. And it's a presentation of my work or Lisa Copeland and Jim Byron by other photographers.
After the AV presentation, then at that point, what happens?
Well, what they do is then they come into here. And the AV presentation, as I showed to you, is a 9-foot screen, total surround sound. It's a very, very visceral experience. It's really funny because after a day I've had 5 interviews, maybe my energy is not so much up.
Right.
Once I put them into the theater, their energy's up for me and coast a little bit. Right. But usually what they see is that my style is very much of a non-posed, very photo essay type of a style.
So at this point, do you show them albums?
Yes, okay. Yes. At that point, then I'll show them my approach to albums, which then also is different.
Okay.
And the first book I'll show them would be this one. Now, they don't see this other volume yet.
Right.
The first book I show them is that one right there.
And in this book, what separates these two books?
Well, that book is the what we call the storybook, and it basically has a photo essay from start to finish. And as they flip through that, now mind you, they've been in the theater and they saw a very photojournalistic approach to their wedding.
Right.
This is in keeping with that mood.
Right.
Every photograph is unposed. It's very
sure.
Yeah.
Sure. And so let's assume that I've gone through this entire book now, and then would you just hand me that book?
No. Then what would happen is after they've seen that, and they'll say, "I love it. This is just what we're looking for." I'll also say, did you notice that there weren't any posed photographs in it whatsoever? Now, some of them have to think. They'll say, oh, yeah, you're right. And they'll say, there's no wedding party photograph. There's no portraits of the bride and groom together or anything like that. And they'll understand that. And then I'll say, did you miss them? And they'll say, no, not at all. And I'll say, isn't that interesting? And then I'll say, if I were to have portraits in that book, where would I put it that it wouldn't interrupt the story? And after all, the story is what we're all about. We're called Storybook Studio.
Sure.
Yeah. At that point, I introduced the companion album. And a companion album is friends and family in portraiture.
I see.
And that's when I show that to them. But it's not a portrait album in the regular sense of...
Yeah, you said a portrait album, and then I open it up, and there's a photograph of the back of the bride's gown.
Right. Yeah. See, the bride thinks in her mind's eye, in little scenes just like that. If I were to ask her, describe your dress for me, she'll say, oh, it has this beautiful bow that I love in the back, or it has this beading in the sleeve. Rather than take a full-length 3/4 in portrait, I'll hover around her and photograph the different parts of her dress, her body, her pearls in her hair, maybe her earring that her grandmother gave her, things like that.
Fabulous.
Yeah.
Fabulous. All right. Backing up just a minute, it occurred to me. What do you do when people call and to set up appointments? With the telephone conversation, is there anything that you do differently, you think, in that area?
Well, a lot of photographers ask me about the question about pricing.
Mm-hmm.
I think if we weren't such a referral-based studio, we'd have more of that. And some of the ones that don't, of course, if they call, they say, guess what,
Right.
Roger just proposed to me and we're getting married. And,
Right.
I can't imagine anyone but you at the end of the altar.
Right.
But the calls that aren't so well qualified, they
Right.
sometimes will ask price.
Right.
And I'll just tell them, since our albums are so custom designed, what I'd rather have you do is come in, we'll talk about your wedding, and I'll show you some books, and we'll put together some numbers.
Right.
That'll give you an idea of what you'd like to see.
And this you get, it looks like you got some brochures of some sort here. What are they all about?
Okay. What happens when I get the phone call is if it's not a direct referral and they're just wanting more information about myself or any of us as a photographer, is we have what's called gallery cards. And these are wonderful. They come in a beautiful a filter. But it was actually inspired by my friend Calvin Hayes.
Oh, yeah.
Calvin makes these beautiful. When I saw his, it's very much the same style.
Right.
These big prints with felt covered in the back, but they're just single glimpse shots of his photography.
Right.
And you'll notice that this says Lisa Copeland.
Right.
This is Lisa's work. Jim has his own cards, and
Right.
I have my own.
Right.
Now, what happens is they open up this thing and they get the gallery cards.
Right.
It's very understated. Just basically has the name of the studio, the
Sure.
signature of the photographer. It doesn't even say wedding photography. Very bold piece. You'll notice that it has the sprocket holes.
Where'd you have these done?
This was Marathon Press.
Yeah.
This is a new product that we devised for basically this. So when a call comes in, the follow-up piece, again, we don't do any direct marketing. We don't do any mailings.
Right.
This is just a follow-up to the inquiry. They get this, and this will have, say, 8 panels of my work,
Right.
all in the same format. But they also get a videotape. And this is by far the most powerful thing that we have because, well, for example, you saw it in the theater.
Right.
If we have a bride from out of town, I just booked a wedding in New York,
Yeah.
where I just basically sent her the video.
Right.
It's a 3-minute video that doesn't even say my name in it.
Right.
Nothing.
Right.
Just photos to music.
Right.
And that's all they need to see. And then it just closes to darkness. With this alone, it's enough.
Sure.
This shows the work. This shows the style.
And this
it's the experience.
that brings them in.
They book over the phone.
Okay, jumping back to where we are. So they've seen the book. Now they've looked at the photographs, and you've got the client.
Right.
Now we'll talk about your equipment later, but they're coming back in now. How do you sell your photographs?
Okay. You mean after you've shot the wedding?
After you've shot the wedding.
Yeah. What we do is actually this year we started going proofless.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Okay.
In fact, it's really kind of interesting, but we shoot so much film, all of us, easily over 1,000 images per wedding. My proof costs are like $400 per wedding if I go to paper proofs. Okay. After, say, 80, 90 weddings maybe we'll do in a year, that's, $30,000, $40,000 in proof alone. So what we've done this year, starting January, we're going proofless on all of our weddings.
I've been doing that
We are the man who invented
for a long time. Are you using Photovix?
Yes, we're using the Photovix. We have to because of the continuous zoom and the ability for it to quickly scan.
Right.
In fact, Karen, my assistant, can scan about 300 photographs per hour. Well, right. So, say, for example, after the 1,000 or so we shoot, we edit it down to 600, 700.
Right.
She can have that into the videotape in about 2 hours.
Okay, so this is the workstation where you do your transfers to video as well as importing images in the montage. How does this system work?
Right. Well, basically, we have a Photovix here, and it's connected directly to the computer. And so all I need to do is take my film in long strips and basically roll it over this, and I'll see it right here on the video screen. You notice how it's moving over.
Now, these are cut images from a wedding that's already gone out to the lab and so forth. So it would normally be a long roll.
Much faster. Sure. Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so how does this work?
Well, what you're seeing right here is a live shot from the Photovix.
I can see it moving
here. Now, watch how fast I can capture a picture. I just basically see that capture button. Just hit it, and I don't know.
Sounds like a camera shutter job.
That's right.
You must have had something to do with that.
And literally, it's just that fast. I can just drop a photograph on there.
Right.
I can adjust the gain or the color balance, anything.
Right. So if you're changing films, you've changed density.
Exactly.
This is real fast to change.
Anything I want.
Yeah.
Now we can scan these in at a rate of about 250 shots per hour.
Roll.
Yeah.
Okay. So you couldn't put a proof album together anywhere near that fast.
You can put that together.
Yeah. Sure.
Exactly.
Sure.
Yeah. The other thing that I really like about the Photovix is that, for example, you can play with the colors, but I can also, like this shot, say I wanted to turn it into black and white.
Right.
I can take it out, and there you have the black and white photograph.
And I noticed you zoom back with that. This is the only unit I've found that holds focus through zoom.
Through the zoom, exactly.
Right.
That's true. But what's also kind of neat is if I want to have like a little hand coloring effect, I can just hand tint.
Sure.
There you go, right there. So you can do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's real interesting.
Yeah.
Also, the thing too is with regards to custom cropping, I can crop it any way I want. Print out the storyboard, give it to the lab, and then the lab can follow
what you've done.
Cropping guide.
Exactly.
Right here on the
What is this case behind you? It says biohazard.
I got to tell you that.
Well, okay, let's go.
But we're not going to open it.
Okay.
This is actually how we transport our film around during the wedding and then after it. This is how it's delivered.
It's a fire safe. Right?
It's a fire safe, exactly. Right. And this is how it stays in my trunk also. Because it's insulated to 4,000 degrees, it's not going to get hot no matter how hot it is in the summer.
Huh.
Right.
Wow.
And of course, if, for example, the lab driver gets in a car accident, rolls a car and gets killed, if my film's in a regular plastic bag, my film's gone. But with this way, my film will be safe.
Sure.
Now, the thing is a man's going to be walking around carrying this. It looks like it holds money or valuables.
Right.
That's why we put the biohazard on it.
Of course.
Because no one's going to open a biohazard box. Right. So,
great idea. Great idea. Is this the equipment? This is all you take to a wedding?
Yeah, I just got back from wedding and on this weekend.
Phenomenal. What?
This is all I carry.
Give me a quick run through.
Sure.
Typical shooting.
This is actually my flash unit, and this, by the way, I'll show it to you, but it simply velcros onto the camera. It's very lightweight. This is my 35 millimeter lens bag.
Right.
And this basically all just throws on this cart, which has wheels and it rolls like that.
What do you typically carry in
the 35 bag? Yeah. Okay. Well, what I have here is I use all Canon.
Right.
And EOS.
Right.
And I have this is my 85 1.2 lens. I use all Canon L lens.
1.2.
This is amazing. With 1600 speed film, if it's dark enough that you can like walk around with banging into things, you're shooting at 1/200th of a second. Unbelievable. This is the Pro 4 lens shade.
Right. Just about everybody on the show is now using that.
I use my polarizing filter.
Right.
It's perfect for that.
Yeah.
They scratch so easy. Right. Yeah. And then this is my 28 to 70 zoom.
Right.
And this is the 70 to 200 2.8 L Canon lens. These lenses are so incredibly sharp. Even though they're zooms, they're sharper than we used to have in fixed focal length lenses. Wonderful stuff.
Well, I'm looking at some of the 20 by 24s on the wall.
Right.
Unbelievable. It's from 35 millimeters.
Exactly. Yeah. But this is what I do basically 90% of the wedding, uncovering it with the 35
for your photojournalism.
Right. Now, for the portrait book, that's when I use the 2.25. Right. So now, let me open this case up. And in here houses, let's flip around that way. And this is all the gear I carry. Okay. So I have, of course, this is my Hasselblad 503C. And I also have this, by the way. The super wide, the SWC. Now, this is just for the one panorama shot with all the guests in it. That's basically what I use this camera for.
What lenses do you carry for the Hasselblad?
Actually, I only carry two right now. I only carry the 60 and the 120. And the reason why I carry the 120 is because it's nice for portraits. I don't have to be too far.
Right.
But because it's a macro.
The macro. Yeah. That's what you know the close-up detail with.
Exactly. Right.
I was wondering.
Right. Yeah. And then for flash, basically what I do is watch this. I throw that on. It's Velcro.
Yeah.
And it will not come off. So there's no lights,
Two Canon bodies.
Now, these are the EOS A2s.
Right.
I used to use the ones. These are lighter, faster, and quieter. And that's why I use that. So, and then also here, of course, is the fisheye, which I use so much, 50 millimeter 2.8. Well, then what happens is the couple comes in, and of course we can do this much sooner than Pruken can because you just basically process the film. Right. They come in and they sit down at the theater. Okay. To music, and they see their wedding on literally a 9-foot screen.
Right. Now I know that you're also using a computer in your sales process.
Right.
Tell me about that.
Okay, well, what ends up happening is I always design what I call a proposed wedding album.
Right.
They hire me for my opinions, for my creativity.
Right.
One of the things I think they hire me for is my opinion about what their finished album should look like.
Right.
And I'm the one who knows my action-reaction sequences, which photographs I can put together, what mats I have available.
Right.
And so they've come to me for that expertise. After they see the videotape, now there's 2 videotapes. Again, in keeping with the portrait-candid split approach.
Right.
There's one videotape for portrait, one for candids. Okay, so first we'll show them, the photo essay, but in a video montage, of course, to music, right? Numbers are on it. And then after they see both tapes, I will then, on the montage computer system, show them the album that I designed for them. If my computer's hooked up, I literally can then follow it up with an album. All right, Ed. So what we did was we scanned all of the photographs into the montage system. And you noticed every time I scanned a photograph, what happened? You heard the camera click. Right. That's taking the picture.
Right.
Once you take the picture, where does the picture go?
On film, contact sheet.
Into a contact sheet, exactly. Right. So Montage has a contact sheet. And what this has is every single photograph that's in the entire wedding. Now, this wedding happens to have about 452 photographs. Previously, in imaging software, the files were too large for me to use practically. In a situation like this, I've got like almost 500 shots in about 11 megs. There's a 50-to-1 compression, which makes it faster and easier to load and everything like that.
Right.
Now that the photographs are into the contact sheet, all I need to do is design my album. And the way I do that, let me just move this over so we can see the photographs that we want. I'll select an album. And we'll just go ahead and pick a mat. Okay. And watch how this works. Let me move this over so you can see it just a little bit better. Now, I'm going to basically select a photograph. And watch what happens. It turns into a hand. See that?
Right.
I'm going to bring it right over the mat and let go. Bang. Photograph's in. That's picture number 21. You'll notice here a big X has come across the contact sheet telling us that we used that photo.
So what you've done is they're saying that this would be the first photograph in the album. This is the map that I've selected, and this is the image that I want to add there.
And there's an area here called the caption for, I can just put a description of this page, for example, headpiece.
Right.
And basically it just works like that. Like, let's say, for example, that I want to do another page here of her greeting her mother, for example. Okay. So I have these 3 photographs on the side.
It's really fast to scan to different areas on the contact sheet.
Yes, exactly. And let's just say, for example, I'll rotate this page, and then her mom comes in and she greets her mom. Her mom gives her a kiss on the cheek, and then her and her mom in a portrait together.
When you're scanning them in off the Photovix, do you try to arrange your film in some sort of chronological order, sort of the way you think the storybook will come together so it's easier to find images and so forth?
It's very easy to do because on the Photovix I can see the film, and then I can sequence it in a story order.
Gotcha.
Much faster than using proofs.
Right.
And when we're shooting like 1,000 pictures in a wedding, it's great that it is this fast to do.
Right.
Now, there are other people who may, for example, have their clients furnish them with a list of photographs. And the way Montage works on that is also very quick. Like, let's say, for example, that she gives me a list of photos, and she gives me pictures, say, 32 and 34.
Okay.
In fact, let me just put another photograph. We'll put more pictures on here. And let's just say that she gives me on a list 32, 34, and 38, right? Okay, I can do this. I can go 38, 32, and 34. Watch how fast that happened.
And the X's over the images.
Exactly.
So what happens if you change that now?
Okay, so let's say, for example, that instead of this one here, I want to take this photograph that's down here. I'm just going to drag it over, and then boom.
And the X
is switched, right, exactly. Wow. And it just basically does that.
So if you get further down, you're never going to duplicate an image within the...
You'll never, yes. We don't want you to do that. Okay, so let's...
Bride doesn't either.
Exactly. So I'll just continue on, and I'll just go ahead and, let's see, the best man hugs the groom. I'll put that in and watch how fast this goes. And let's see, the groom and the best man. And then we'll do maybe something, I'll just pick a smaller mat here. And... we'll just rotate that to the side.
Now, you keep picking mats. Yes. Where are you getting that from?
Basically, what happens is when I want to create a new mat, you'll see this mat ID, and I pull down here. This is Art Leather's complete selection of all the mats that they offer.
Uh-huh.
And one thing that's really nice about using their Studio 2000 assembly program is that I don't have to stock the inventory of the mats.
Sure.
It gives me the creative freedom of choosing any mat that they have whatsoever.
Without having to have hundreds and hundreds of dollars in inventory.
And to have to count it each time is really a drag.
Sure.
Yeah. So, for example, let me just finish up with one last page here, and I'll do a shot here with the groom and two of the boys. Let me just rotate this sideways, and then maybe one last shot here of his family. So let's just do that, and let's just pick a kind of an interesting mat there. We'll move that.
Right.
That's probably a good mat for there. We'll just drop that in, and boom. Okay. Now, while we're doing that, let me just do one last one because I have to finish on the right side. Yeah.
And now you do this before the bride and groom come in. You mentioned, you could send them out with the proofs and then they would give you a list and you would build it, but you actually build the album before they've ever seen your photographs.
Because once they visualize how the album is supposed to look, they'll know that when they start taking pictures out, it'll destroy the layout. Like, for example, if I have an album that's completely done, if they take one 8x10 out, the right and left page relationships will shift in the entire book, thereby destroying the book. In this way, I can show them my suggestion for a finished album, and it's very compelling. What ends up happening is after the couple sees the videotapes of the wedding from start to finish, I show them my suggested album layout.
That's great.
Okay, and watch how I can do that. I can say, okay, well, we opened with your headpiece, and then you walked up and greeted your mom. She kissed you, and then there's a portrait of you and your mom. And I can basically cycle through page by page so they can see what the finished album's going to look like.
Incredible.
And from that, again, it's very nice for them to be able to see the finished album.
And now, aside from, I can see how this is a wonderful sales tool. Does it help with the production in terms of simplifying your life, invoicing, getting your negatives ready to go to the lab, that kind of thing?
Well, imagine, if you will, that there's absolutely no paperwork involved or no production involved either. I can literally take this right now and go up here to under the client, under the auto assembly here, and I can just basically have Montage create all of the paperwork that's necessary for ordering and assembling the order. What I do is I fax this to Art Leather. Art Leather then assembles the book for me, and it comes back complete with the prints inside it in about 6 weeks.
Fantastic.
It's pretty amazing.
Now, doesn't it also create labels for your glasses?
Yes, it'll do labels. This is one of the most popular features of Montage, is the fact that it will do a summary of everybody's print order, print them in numerical order, and you can just basically stick these onto your negative glassines.
That's great.
A new feature that we just came up with is the copyright labels. And this is wonderful because when your lab gives you the prints back, you will have one of these stickers for every photograph that you owe your customer. This one says the name of the client, copyright my studio, to reorder, my phone number, print number 7 for Storybook, for Uncle Harry, for Bride's Parents album, and you basically stick that on.
That's fantastic.
Now, once we're done with the actual design, I can basically go up here to the invoice summary, pull down the invoice, and it'll instantly add up exactly what their bill is, all of the photographs involved.
Now, suppose that you've made the presentation, you pull up the invoice, and they have a heart attack and say, wait a minute, we've got to cut this thing back.
Right.
I mean, is that complicated or?
It's interesting that you asked that. I'd say about 3 out of 4 couples who see the actual storyboard simply say yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. They
can't imagine changing.
It's perfection as it is. Should they want to change it, of course, that's very easy to do right here on the screen. And I can just, like, for example, here, if I just want to take one of those photographs off, you see 3 photographs now. I'll just do something like this, and
change that to page 2.
Exactly.
And now, would that also be reflected in the invoice then?
The invoice changes, and also the print list. So while you're putting the photographs in, Montage is compiling a list of all the pictures that you're going to need for the actual album.
Incredible.
Yeah.
One of the problems that I always had, because I wasn't using a computer system to lay out their album, it was a little more crude than that, is that they could take that tape with all the images, but they didn't have anything to take home to show other people what their finished album is going to look like. How do you get around that?
Exactly. Well, one of the key points of Montage is, of course, the storyboard. Now, you saw that. Well, this is actually a color printout from and I can't believe how fast technology is progressing these days. You can get quality like that on a $295 printer.
That's your mom.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. It's full color photographic, and of course, it looks like we've literally taken an album and photographed each open facing page, and then stuck it on. It's literally a virtual album.
And this, you see, sometimes I would get buyer's remorse.
Right.
They didn't. Once they left, they couldn't see what that album looked like anymore.
Exactly.
I would bet this prevents that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, they love it, and the thing is that also goes with them when they take the first videotapes home.
Right.
Now, while I showed it to them on the screen and I gave them a presentation, and one key point is they always really have an opinion of the first thing that they saw. So what we do is we show them the album as I intend it to be. From that point on, it's burned into their consciousness as this is the way it should be done. When I'm finished with that, they take home the video cassettes, but they also take home that. And I ask them if they could just mark off the pictures they don't want. Now, what's ended up happening is since I started doing pre-designed albums, they've gone so large that I couldn't fit them into one book. See, Art Leather's pages can only go to 36. Now, this is a 36 insert book right here.
Sure.
This alone probably weighs about 40 pounds, and this is as large as you can get. Most photographers, and us included, would love to sell one 36 inch.
Yeah, I was going to say, yeah.
That's a huge sale.
Right.
But we consistently, because it's so difficult to eliminate from a complete, there's so many ways that locks the pages in. It's so hard to eliminate that it would not fit into one book.
So you're consistently selling 2 pages. That's fantastic.
Right.
Gary, I can't thank you enough for letting us come into your studio.
Oh, it's been a real pleasure. Look at what?
Finally, he's got
that's right.
suit and tie,
and we're
cowboy boots,
twins.
black jeans. All right.
You can call me Art Leather Jr.
Art Leather. Listen, I think we've got a person in this audience.
Sure.
We'll take real quick. Nazan?
Yes. Gary, I would really like to know how do you convince the client to purchase a 2-album set?
The 2-volume set?
Yeah.
Well, there was really kind of an interesting idea that happened is when we started pre-designing suggested albums, we found that we ran out of space very, very quickly. And there was no way that we could, go above that because it's already this thick. So what happened was Lisa Copeland, my studio manager, came up with the idea of an artistic approach to the 2-volume set, which is all of the portraits or the photojournalism in one book and all the portraits in another book. And what ended up happening was I was so hot on the idea. And this is what I suggest to photographers who want to attempt this. I threw away all my 1-volume sets. And then I just had all 2-volume sets. Now, when the couple comes in, the first book that I show them is the photo essay. And it's just candid. And they love it. They're hot on it. And they think this is the greatest thing. And then when they're done, I ask them, did you notice that there were no pose photographs? There's no shots of the wedding party or bride and groom together. And after thinking about it for a moment, they say, yes, that's true. There isn't, is there? And then I asked them if they missed it. And they said, no, they don't. And I said, well, if I were to put them in, where would I put them in the book so it wouldn't screw up the story? And at that point, I showed them the portrait album as a companion book.
We've got Steve from Springfield. Steve, are you there?
Hi, Gary. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Great, great. Listen, I have 2 questions. Regarding the montage system, is it available for Pentium-based computers?
Absolutely, yes.
Yes, okay. And the second question, can we, using the montage, build the album on the computer and then dump the video so that we can send a montage video to the customer as a video album?
Yes, you can. And one of the strengths about the montage system, I think, is in the presentation. There's two ways that you can basically do a video presentation. One is what I call a linear approach, which is one shot after another. And the other one is to show the completed page as a unit. When you show the completed page as a unit, then their opinion about what that page should look like freezes upon the first impression. That's why it's such a very good sales presentation technique.
We've got Ken on the line from Jacksonville. Ken?
Hi, Gary. Do you have any assistants shooting to produce the 1,000 images, and what are your film preferences?
I'm sorry.
I didn't catch the first part myself.
Do you have assistants shooting to help produce the 1,000 images, and what are your film preferences?
Right. No, actually, no. I do have an assistant. The assistant does lighting, reflector, and then also the second variable blinding unit. As far as film preferences, this is going to sound really kind of interesting. Well, for the medium format for my Hasselblads, I use the Kodak Pro 400. The newest one is a little lighter on the contrast than the previous generations, and I found that it has a color pop and a color saturation that I really like. And this is going to sound interesting. For my 35 millimeter, I actually use amateur film. I've found that the amateur film has much more of a tolerance for imperfections in lighting conditions and things like that. The professional films think that a professional photographer is controlling all the elements, whereas the film is kind of like hamburger helper.
Right.
Yeah, because it's amateurs, they need some help. So
good. Claude from Detroit.
Hello, Gary. How you doing?
Good. Hi, Claude.
You're a wild man.
Is that Claude Jourdain?
I'm sorry.
Is that Claude Jourdain?
That's me.
How you doing, Claude?
Great. I got a question about your Canon
Yes.
35. Do you have a short zoom with that as well?
Yes, I do. I have a 28 to 70 2.8 L.
Okay.
Yeah.
And do you use 1600 film in your black and white images?
1600 film? No, it's typically 800 film in the black and white. And what I'm also doing is I'm shooting it in color and using Kodak's Ectomax paper to transfer it over to black and white. So that gives me the creative ability of shooting basically one film kind of format and then later having the choice to turn it into black and white.
We've got Jim from Corpus Christi.
Yeah, Gary, I wanted to ask the question, or actually three questions. One is, which model Photovix system are you using? What type of video capture board do you have in your Macintosh system, and how much RAM capacity in your Macintosh system?
Well, what you saw on the video and what we use in the theater and also what I use on tour, and this is very interesting. It's a $700 computer. It's a Macintosh Performa that you can get at your local, computer store. It has a $109 video card attached to it, so that's your investment's about $800 or something like that for the computer. 12 megs of RAM, which is standard on that model of computer, and then the Photovix, which is the 2XS, the new 2XS model, and that's what we were using.
I think we got time for one quick one. Meg from, I think it's Nashville? Margaret, I'm sorry, Margaret.
Hello, this is Margaret from Nashville. I have one question regarding montage.
Uh-huh.
It's the numbers for the mat. How do you know which number is which mat?
Well, for me, I have them all memorized because I've been using art leather for 14 years. But what you do is you basically get the art leather order form, and on that order form, it's illustrated what all the mats are. And it's pretty intuitive. Like if it's a 100 series mat, that's one print per page, 200, two prints per page, and like that. So it's very, very fast to learn.